Hi, everybody. I'm Ellen Bristol, and I have the great pleasure today of speaking to you about a topic that is of great importance to the nonprofit sector as a whole. I also have the honor of having this conversation with my fellow and partner, George Khaldun. And let me introduce both of us briefly. I founded Bristol Strategy Group in 1995 with the expressed mission of improving nonprofit fundraising results. And as I've worked on that, recognizing that fundraising is a highly strategic business function, our mission has grown to encompass enterprise-wide strategic management of the nonprofit. My associate, George Khaldun, is a very distinguished guy. He is the co-founder of the Harlem Children's Zone, again, also founded in '95. Harlem Children's Zone grew out of an idea between George and his partner, Jeffrey Canada, to improve the lives of people who lived in Harlem, one of New York City's notoriously under-resourced, poor and troubled communities at the time. Thanks to George's brilliant operating standards and ability to execute, and Jeff's powerful vision for changing the lives of children in Harlem, they developed a product, a program, a resource, a community that now serves at least 3,000 children a year and has an annual budget of $154 million, plus a $50 million endowment, something that many social sector organizations would give their right arms for. This 3-webinar session is going to concentrate on how to empower nonprofits to improve their impact. And it doesn't matter if those nonprofits are US-based or in other countries, because the social problems we face are universal. The first session, George and I are going to discuss what is going on in nonprofits that permits a few stars in the nonprofit firmament to be as impactful as Harlem Children's Zone, and what's not working to enable other social sector organizations to achieve their missions. So I'd like George to start by talking about something that he and I agree upon, which is that the mission drives leaders, leaders drive the vision, and execution is mission critical and must be handled in an impeccable, consistent manner. So George, can you talk about how you made Harlem Children's Zone function?
Well, Sure. One of the things that a lot of nonprofits have in common is that their missions are good missions, meaning that they are designed to improve the quality of individuals' lives, which is a noble idea. All of them start off with an idea of how can we improve humanity, how can we improve neighborhoods, how can we improve the plight of women and children and poor people who live under adverse conditions. Noble ideas, to say the least. But where the problem comes in is when this noble idea of this great vision that you have is not, you're not able to develop the funding, number one, to bring that idea to fruition. That is one of the major problems, and that leads to other issues. If you don't have the funding, then you have problems with hiring the right staff who could help execute on that beautiful vision that you have given to society. And so the importance is developing a methodology for raising funds, which will help you with your mission and to bring your vision into fruition. And so those are some fundamental problems that we have in the nonprofit world.
I've been very intrigued by the way you and your partner, Jeff Canada, funded the Harlem Children's Zone at the outset. And it was a very counterintuitive mechanism. You guys decided how to quantify the problems you wanted to solve. And then you used very business-like disciplines to go to the funding market, even though you went to philanthropists and foundations. You said, this is what it's going to take to change these undesirable results to these desirable results. And in a way, in a way, you almost said, if you're not willing to step up, thanks, but no thanks. So you weren't asking for a favor or a handout. You were saying, this is a problem we've been struggling with for decades. Let's stop struggling with it. Let's solve it. And this is what it's going to take.
One of the things we did from the very outset, we said we're going to develop the vision, and then we're going to put the metrics behind that vision.
Right.
And that was critical. And we said we're not going to let money drive our outcomes. Our vision said X, and our mission said X, meaning that we needed $2 million in order to execute this beautiful vision that we have. And here are the metrics. So, sir or ma'am, would you help us in terms of driving these outcomes for people who are deserving? And so that was our methodology, and those are some of the concepts that drove us in terms of creating the Harlem Children's Zone. In fact, we developed our own RFP, meaning that foundations and other givers, normally they would give you their RFP. But we said, no, this is what we want to do. This is our vision. Here are the metrics. Can you help us to achieve our goals or objectives?
And I think we have seen the most successful social sector organizations do something like you talked about. They're not afraid to ask for big chunks of money, and they're not afraid to both hire people who deserve good compensation, and nor are they afraid of demanding superior performance for those people. By contrast, what we see in a very large proportion of social service agencies is that the mission may often be poorly defined. Over the years, we've gotten many requests for help from startup or would-be nonprofit entrepreneurs whose mission is, we want to help people. Well, how, who, how much help, in what areas? You know, I'm exaggerating. But how we know that so many of these organizations are underperforming is they're understaffed in the first place. We've seen far too much of that. Would you agree?
I totally agree. And a lot of times they're understaffed because they're underfunded. And that creates a vicious cycle, meaning that the funding community has to realize, just like in the nonprofit world, if you don't have the proper staff or the resources to support that staff, the mission will more than likely not be met. So what funders have to realize is that you're giving $100,000, where really the organization needs $200,000 in order to be successful.
Or
so when they don't,
or $1 million,
they don't achieve their goals, everyone gets upset. The funder gets upset and stops funding.
Precisely.
That's a major problem.
One of you actually said how we would think in the nonprofit world, when I know you meant to say how we would think in the for-profit world.
For-profit world, that's right.
Bankers or the investment community, you have to show those people the likelihood, the gravity of the opportunity or the problem, how you're going to solve that problem. And you get laughed out of the room if you don't say it's going to take this much money to hire people with this kind of, standards of their ability to perform. So we see organizations where the founder goes without a salary for years, where they hire undertrained or volunteer staffs to do things that really are mission critical, and so on. And it's a serious issue. One of the statistics I'm very intrigued with, I won't give it in the form of numbers, is the principal reason that donors leave organizations, in other words, cease funding. And this is individual donors, major donors, corporate sponsorships, and even foundation grant-making organizations, is because they get no feedback from their beneficiaries. They don't hear reports. They don't know results that their collective gifts have empowered. And it turns out to be a real mess. So we have lots and lots of struggling nonprofits. To the surprise of many people in the for-profit world, the nonprofit sector is invisible, and many folks operate on the assumption that we don't need any money, that it should be done out of charity, which I can't quite understand what charity means if it doesn't mean handing over folding green, providing sufficient funding. So I think we have a number of issues to address here that are really appealing. We wanted to keep this conversation to about 15 minutes. So in the last couple of minutes we have left, George, I'd like a couple of ideas from you about how we are going to cope with the growing global social needs, from climate change, from nationalistic warfare, from global conflict, from the emergence of new diseases as a result of globalization, and so on and so forth. If we don't embrace more business-like disciplines, or what Jim Collins likes, the author of Good to Great, likes to refer to as the disciplines of greatness. Give me your 2 cents on this issue.
Yeah, I think the cardinal issue is, number one, developing a strategic plan and objectives. And by developing a strategic plan, that includes fundraising, that includes hiring the right staff, that includes having a mission that is designed to attack the social, political, or economic needs of a community. Those issues have to be clearly defined. And then the question that we have touched on before, getting those people, after viewing this plan or putting that plan together, getting those people of like minds or people who are interested in bringing about a change to support it financially by supporting the strategic objectives that have been clearly laid out. And then it's also one of the things you touched on, it's up to the nonprofit to give annual or quarterly reports on what's happening. it's up to the nonprofit to invite the funder to their program to see the children that you're working with, to engage the parents that you're working with, to see the beautiful building that you just built with your funds. So it's up to the individual nonprofit to invite people in to actually see the product, to see the number of kids who have graduated from high school, to see the number of pre-K kids who can now read and do some math, to see the beautiful structure that you have put together in terms of the building that you just built with that money. Mm-hmm. Also, as I said earlier, the critical thing is to give them quarterly reports showing the progress or non-progress, outlining your challenges, outlining your successes. And this is the way you keep your funders involved. But the big picture is that we, as a nonprofit, have to go out, we have to engage people, we have to be articulate, and we have to have a plan that our funders can understand and go along with.
And that means rethinking the notion of charity as wealthy people being nice to not so wealthy people, to one of investment.
Absolutely. It's an investment. It's not charity. You're investing in the future of our community, our nation, and our city by investing in nonprofits that are designed to improve the quality of life for people.
So we have reached nearly 17 minutes. I promised we would be done in 15 minutes, but we just couldn't resist. The next time we talk, George and I are going to discuss the efforts and initiatives that have been common in the social sector and what's not working as a result of contemporary efforts. Our third program will be about moving to a more effective approach. Thank you very much, George, and I can't wait for our next conversation.
Thank you. This is one, I enjoyed this very much.
Bye now.